Y'all know what time it is? One Piece chapter 1110. If you don't know, now you do. Yeah, it's continuing. It's been a break and we're back. Falling Stars, or Planet Fall, which is, kind of a play on the Saturn and the Gorosei falling. Not Saturn, the other Gorosei falling. Either way, the Gorosei are here. I know last chapter, a couple weeks ago, we were somewhat apprehensive because it's like, there's no way Oda's going to show us all the Gorosei, right? He's going to trick us. It's going to be something else. There's no way. Even with, at the end of the chapter, saying the stars of the planets finally align, I was like, Oda, don't play with me. This chapter, he didn't play. He gave us what we came here for. All of the Gorosei and their designs, their devil fruits. I'm guessing? Either way, it's time to get into it. Cover story continues. Like I said, we had three options in regards to the Wano cover story. Blackbeard pulling up, Big Mom and Kaido coming back, or Yamato exploring Wano as Odin. And well, we got the choice that I would rather not have happened, but the one that was most likely because it's tame. However, it does lead somewhere. We have Yamato and Momonosuke. She's saying she wants to explore the land just like Odin did. She did tell us that's something she wanted to do, so I'm not mad about it. It's something that I expected to happen, not in a cover story. At some point, Oda just flashing back and forth, but this works. It will lead somewhere, I'm assuming. Now, great cover story leads into a great chapter. Black lightning dropping in everywhere. People are wondering what's going on. This is very similar to when Saturn dropped in. Guys, can you explain? The giants are here, pulling up, trying to stop the bombardment. Then we go to Mary Joa. And what's happening in Mary Joa? Well, nothing is happening because nobody is there. This is Oda telling us, hey, I'm not playing with you guys, okay? There's nobody here. The Gorosei are on their way because, again, we were skeptical. They're not there. Now, Vegapunk is also introducing coffee, or Vega coffee. At the time, I'm not caring about Vega coffee. I'm like, the Gorosei aren't there. Next page, we're going to get the Gorosei reveals. And let's talk about it. The Gorosei pull up. Every single one of them are here. Now let's go through them really quickly. Saint J. Garcia Saturn is the Gyuki. Saint Topman Warkiri is the Hoki. Saint Ethan Baran Nasjuro is the Bakotsu. And Saint Shepherd Jupiter is the Sandworm. Now, shout out to TCB because TCB gave a nice breakdown on these characters. And so let's insert it here. So TCB's breakdown of this was great because they talked about a chapter being adapted as Falling Stars, but what we're going to focus on right now is the different mythical creatures that could be tied to the Gorosei. First, the Gyuki, which is a spider yokai and is famous for its giant cow-like face. They like to attack people on the beach. Second is the Itsumade, and it's a creepy bird yokai with a human face and snake-like body. Third is the Hoki, and it's a monstrous boar from Chinese folklore, famous for terrorizing the countryside. Four, the Bakotsu, and that's a skeletal yokai, and it's said to be the spirit of a horse that's burned to death. And five, last but not least, is a sandworm. It's a mythical serpent or legless dragon that appears in numerous modern fantasy franchises. It could also be related to similar creatures in works like Dune. Now, this is insane. We got the forms of all the Gorosei. Finally. Now, we didn't get clarity on exactly what they are, but none of these guys have typical devil fruits. They all have mythical fruits, or we're assuming mythical fruits. Bro, what are they? Here's what my assumption is. All mythical devil fruits, right? But they're all immortal, which doesn't have any relation to their devil fruit, but rather just what they've been through, how they've transformed over time. You could be using the Opi no Mi, but I don't think them being immortal or being able to take damage, which we'll talk about later in the chapter, is necessarily because of their fruits. So I'm going to say that all these guys, immortal. Right? All of them. Secondly, these are all mythical devil fruits, and in some way, they're all connected to Imu. Now, if they end up not being devil fruits, that's going to be insane because it's something completely new. If these are all powers bestowed to them by Imu, what are you? Because if Imu has a devil fruit and he can bestow devil fruit powers on other people, you got it, champ. But right now, insane devil fruits. All just weird ass devil fruits. My favorite so far, probably Nasjuro. And that's not necessarily because of how he looks, but he was going crazy this chapter. And I think the setup is clearly there for what Oda wants to happen. Again, we'll talk about that. The Itsumade looks cool as well, right? That looks really cool. The most underwhelming one was the Sandworm. Like, I think it could be fire. I'm just picturing Jupiter in his Sandworm partial transformation or his hybrid. I don't know. It is insane to see all these characters and their true forms. Bro, I remember when we saw the Sabo chapter and it's like a different manga with like demons all around him, which is still possible. They could be just demons reincarnated or demons incarnate. I don't know. But they pull up, right? They all transform. They're all large, by the way. Like that double spread was, guys, let's be honest. The double spread was insane, not just because of how it looks, but the scale. Look how small Luffy is. And Saturn, when Luffy was large, he was grabbing Saturn, so you can tell relative to giant Luffy what the size is, but the others are bigger than Saturn, like much larger than Saturn. So these things, they might be even larger than Kaido, more than likely. Like they are enormous. So imagine all these things pulling up at that moment. It looks like, bro, it looks like the world is ending. It looks like, what is this? It's the end of the world. Now, again, like I said, Oda is going out of his way to portray Nasjuro as an insane combatant, insane character, period. Because this dude just straight up blitzed Kuma, or the Pacifista. And it looked like he just appeared there instantly. So his speed is crazy. I don't want to overstate this because the Pacifista, I mean, they're not the strongest combatants, but he blitzed him and did his partial transformation slice in an instant. When we get back to where Luffy is, Luffy's pretty much in the same spot, but he's already sliced through several Pacifista. So he is moving along the coastline. So Nasjuro, that partial transformation was yes. And it's the fact that he's a horse. I mean, also with Nasjuro, what he's doing isn't necessarily just cutting them down. He is basically short-circuiting them. He's basically freezing their neural circuitry. So using his slash attacks, which seem to be similar to Brook's, right? The strikes of the underworld. It's so cold. It is just short-circuiting them where they can't move or they're immobilized for a while, which is because they're the property of the world government. So they don't want to destroy all of them, but this is how they can put them down without destroying the property. So Nasjuro gas continues. Meticulous, detailed. You love to see it. Sanji's seeing all this play out. So he's like, yo, Nami, you guys got to get out of here. Okay, at this point, y'all can't play around anymore because crazy things are happening. Now, the Tsunade, Mars, he can fly, so he is probably the one that's gonna get to them. However, I expect Sanji possibly could intercept. I don't know, because Sanji's seen things happening, but he still has Vegapunk. He hasn't let go of Vegapunk yet, and so I wish Oda didn't have him focusing on that task, because it's just like, bro, we need Sanji. And Sanji's seeing that bird flying in the sky. He'd be the perfect person to intercept, which he still can. It's just, bro, give Vegapunk to someone else. We need you on duty, fighting people. We don't need you carrying Vegapunk around. They already failed at that. All right, let me slow down. Okay, it's just other people can do that. Fodder can do that. We need you. Go back, go. Give him to somebody. He's dead. All right, he's gone. Carrying a dead body. All right. Maybe that's a bit too harsh. I'm just saying. We need you, bro. Look, you see that? Do you see these monsters flying around doing whatever they want to? Go help them. Yo. Go help them. All right. So the goal is obviously to stop the transmission. We'll see what comes of that. These people are setting up to be insane final, I guess. I don't know if they're going to be the final opponents in the story. I doubt that. I'm leaning towards the Blackbeard Pirates just because of what's been set up, but they're pretty significant. Now, people are still talking about Brook fighting Nasjuro as opposed to Zoro. I think this is Zoro's fight. But the Nasjuro gas in this chapter is insane. He's blitzing all the pacifists. The Oda's giving him all the dope poses, all the dope Zoro poses that you could think of. Nasjuro is getting those. And again, we presume for him to have a supreme grade blade, right? Because he needs the Gorosei. And to have a blade that's an upgrade of Zoro's blade, which would be Shodai Kitetsu. So this guy showing off like this, I think it's apparent what's happening next, what Oda is trying to set up. Now, Luffy's fighting against Jupiter and of course still Saturn, and Jupiter is a sandworm, so he's going underground, right? He's burrowing underground. Then he comes back up and he eats Luffy. Luffy gets eaten a lot. Like, it just happens. And just, you know, just like that, he gets saved. Like last time, Kaido ate him and Zoro does a dragon twister, I believe, and it got Luffy out of there. Luffy just got like, bro, stop getting eaten. I guess we'll get to the final part of the chapter with the giants, but let's focus on Zoro versus Rob Lucci really quickly, because that's what the story did. They kind of took a break from Luffy and everything going on there. Let's go to Zoro versus Rob Lucci. A lot of us have been waiting for this fight to conclude. We felt like, wait, is Rob Lucci impressive or is Zoro underwhelming? And depending on what side you're on, depends on who you like more or who you like or who you hate. Because if you don't like Zoro or Zoro fans, you're gonna be like, of course Zoro's trash, which is never the case. Zoro and Lucci fighting. They notice the hockey. They basically exchange saying, hey, that's pretty strong hockey. It's like, yeah, it's popping up everywhere. Jinbei's approaching. He's almost there. Sanji's like, yo, Mosshead is still playing around, right? He's putting everyone in danger. And then he calls Zoro a burden. And it seems like Zoro heard him. He gets mad. The first attack we see between Zoro and Rob Lucci looks like Rob Lucci just armed him. He lost one of his blades. He hears Sanji. Zoro gets mad, gets his blade back. Assumingly, if this fight is over, boom, Hahava hunt. Like I've always stated, something is subtle in this chapter is Rob Lucci attacking Zoro and Zoro just casually dodging it, which I said Zoro's observation haki is not as profound as Sanji's. I think Sanji's is obviously better, but I think Zoro makes up for the difference between the two, where observation haki is negligible between the two, because Zoro has probably the best or some of the best reaction instincts in One Piece. So Rob Lucci goes for an attack, a spotted handgun, and Zoro I want to say casually. It seems casual, dodges Rob Lucci, then goes for his Hahafa hunt. With observation haki, even though you heard Sanji from where he was, with observation haki, even though Zoro doesn't have the best in regards to what you expect, it doesn't matter. Because instinctively, he's a beast and he is going to be able to react to anyone and get the best of anyone if he wants to in regards to reaction speed. So your observation haki, doesn't matter how good it is, Zoro's going to be a lot to overcome, and this chapter is showing it to me. I'm not sure if Rob Lucci's done. It makes sense considering what could happen in the next chapter. Zoro doing Zoro things. That's how I look at it. Now, a lot of people are trying to evaluate this fight, saying who was stronger, who did what, and how easy was the fight. And this is somewhat getting into the next chapter. At this point, Zoro's fighting Rob Lucci in the Labo phase. Zoro is one of the more important fights because basically the last defense because Nasjuro is blitzing through everyone. Oda wanted Zoro to be here. So he kept Zoro here because at the end of the day, you don't want Zoro wandering around like, hey, Zoro, go to the Labo phase. Nasjuro is going there. He's not going to find it. So what you do, you have Zoro stay in the same spot that's going to be the most important at the end of the arc or towards the end of the arc. And then you have the enemy go to Zoro. You don't want Zoro going to the enemy. The enemy go to Zoro. And then you get the clash between Nasjuro and Zoro in chapter 1111. We'll get deeper into that once we talk about the possibilities of that chapter and why it's significant. But I think the whole point was to keep Zoro here. Now, how do you judge the fight between Zoro and Rob Lucci? It's subjective. Zoro took it seriously after Sanji said something. So could he have always just popped out and just dominated Rob Lucci? That's the assumption, but he started off using King of Hell. This wasn't even a King of Hell mode attack. And some people are questioning if it's Advanced Conqueror's haki. I think it's Advanced Conqueror's, but it's no King of Hell. This is just Hava Hunt. This is assuming Rob Lucci is done. I don't think Rob Lucci's done for the arc, but I think for right now, he's down. I do think it's Advanced Conqueror's. And, this is Zoro doing Zoro things, like I said again. Now, let's get to the end of the chapter, and it's Luffy, after he gets eaten by Jupiter. He gets saved by Dory and Brogy, child of the Sawing Sun. And again, shout out to TCB. They put some information about this attack because what they said was Dory and Brogy's move means Sawing Sun, but the Furigana makes it sound like child of the sun, making it almost seem like a continuation of their dialogue about darkness being no place for Luffy. Now let's talk about that. Luffy being in the belly of the worm is no place for him because he is the sun god. He brings light. And so, yes, I don't want the sun god being in the belly because darkness is no place for somebody like that. It's like a fun play on something that's happening. Luffy reacting to them, again, nostalgia hit. Nostalgia's hitting us because he's like, bruh, like he hasn't seen them in so long. He's like, yo, they're here. And they're like, yo, it's been too long. We couldn't have waited. And now we have the reunion here, and the Giants and Luffy, they're going to combine to fight against Top Saturn. I'm just always inclined to say Top Man, but Saturn and Jupiter. Now, based off of how these people are, because for the most part, all the Gorosei haven't even done anything yet. I don't know how they're going to get out of this one. It's implied that the Strides could separate as well. Like they could just go their, not separate ways, but they have to separate based on what's going on. It's too much chaos ensuing and they have to just get out when they can. No, listen. This chapter was a marvel. I think Oda was setting up Zoro for the next chapter. I also do think that Oda's going to give us some interesting lore in regards to swordsmen as well. Again, we'll talk about that, but also the Giants being here is interesting considering Elbaf is presumed to be the next arc. I wonder if we could get some lore in regards to the Gorosei and how it relates to Elbaf because they're all here. Some people have already begun to dig into the lore of the mythical creatures that are the Gorosei and how it ties to some of the Straw Hats. Obviously, Nasjuro and the horse being related to like being a mythical creature from the underworld, which is implying that this is who Zoro's going to fight against. Something I want to talk about as well, shout out to TCB. Again, Zoro's move, the Hahava, they're saying it's the coldest hell in Buddhism. So basically, again, there's a lot of parallels in this chapter between Zoro and Nasjuro. And again, we knew Nasjuro had to have some connection to Wano based on, well, Nasjuro. And he's also a swordsman and he's also dressed in typical, somewhat samurai garb. It makes a lot of sense that you have Zoro and Nasjuro have somewhat of a clash here. And I think that's somewhat the focus other than the forms of the Gorosei. As we dig deeper over the next week, you're going to get a lot of information about the Gorosei and what these forms mean, because I do think they're significant. Oda does put a lot of thought goes into some characters like this and what they mean. So for the most part, all yokai, mythical creatures, man, great freaking chapter. Guys, I can't wait for next week. No break. So we have a lot to look forward to. Give me your thoughts. How do you feel about it? You're going to get some research and get some theories out because there's more to get to. We got to talk about it. But yeah, like, subscribe. Catch you next one. Peace.